real privilege, and thank you. I don't know, because we've never really formally met.
Yeah.
Podcasts are really a huge part of my life. They're kind of part of, I'm not usually on this end, I'm on the other end.
Yeah.
And I kind of perceive them as my almost daily meditation, healing. I love to learn and I love to grow. So I'm a huge believer in the podcast. And if one person can get one little thing out of it, I think it's such a gift and treat.
Absolutely. And we all have a story to tell, don't we?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, we all do.
We're so different, yet we're all the same. And we all have these little quirks of each other, and we can pick up these little gems, which I find interesting, these tools.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they are. And it's such a, with modern technology, I really think it's such a incredible kind of medium because, I'm in the visual arts world. So I look at things all day. And then for other people, they're on their computers all day. So you're looking, and I just really love listening to people speak. I
Mhm.
don't have the greatest voice, but there's certain people out there that I really love listening to what they have to say. And I just really like the word. My mom is, she can binge shows and she loves Netflix and Prime. And I'm really somebody that if I'm going to spend my time, whatever time I have, I really do like to listen to a podcast.
When you were growing up, was it radio? And were you interested in listening to that? Or is it just the
Um,
podcasting thing that just got you there?
I grew up in Springbank in the country, so we
Oh,
were
yeah.
never at home a lot and we didn't have cable TV. So I think that I was just never really raised with TV. So it's not
Mhm.
something that I go to relax. But in those days, you put in the cassette track and
Oh,
you
yeah.
listen to music. And I'm a huge lover because I think my parents played a lot of whether it was Gordon Lightfoot or Barbara Streisand or Neil Diamond, Paul Anka. I think I'm a little bit older than a few of your peeps. So when I went and kind of took a look at who you've spent time with on your podcast, a lot of people were talking about, in their 50th year and thinking that that was a long time. And I started very young, but going into your 30th or 31st year in a business is a very different thing.
Yeah. And how has that been for you? 31 years, my goodness.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's been great. Like I could never ask for anything more. I'm very, very lucky. There's not a lot of people that get to experience that, especially in small business and especially in Calgary. But Calgary has been really good to me, and I love making what I perceive the wild, wild west a little bit more sophisticated. And I think I come from a family of people that are just really dedicated and believe in long-term relationships. My dad's 77 and still works every single day. He's an entrepreneur, a small business person, was a lawyer. My mom obviously is my business partner. We just, we're not into short-term things.
No,
I guess same with my marriage, 28 years.
I love it.
Yeah,
So when you say not into short-term things, that is rare to see today because a lot
it
of
is.
people think, well, if I'm not going to benefit now, then what's the point? That instant
Yeah,
gratification.
yeah, instant gratification is, I think, the unfortunate part of technology and all these new mediums and social media, because you only really, and this is what I try and tell my child also, is that you only feel good about yourself if you put in a lot of effort and you put in a lot of time and you work hard. And if you don't do all of that, you're not going to reap the rewards. It takes years and years. And I have
Mm.
actually quite a few people in my life that started in Calgary, like whether interior designers or, doctors, dentists, florists. And we all kind of started at the same time. And there is that longevity of some great people in Calgary that have really made it a very different place.
So you graduated from McGill. That's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. And it was
I think
not,
I think it was a different school back then, but I did. It was very, last year I took my son across the country and we visited 5 or 6 universities and we looked at the pros and the cons and like daily life and food plans and all this craziness. And I remember when I got accepted to McGill, I think it was the only school I applied to. And my mom and I went, I showed up at residence with a Sporting Life duffel bag
I love it.
And, there was no real major decisions that anybody really cared about. My parents didn't truck me around. We just showed up. We stood in line at that time for a phone for like 3 hours because you had to go to the downtown kind of TELUS building. And it was just a very different world. But on the other hand, the information is so amazing because, you and I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for it. So there's pros and cons, but I think of this generation, and I deal a lot with them because I have an almost 20-year-old son and I have some great, amazing people that work for me. But I think that it is really important for if you are a business person and you are an entrepreneur, is it takes years and years of hard work. And that's the only way you're going to see gratification. If you want to, the days of kind of just instant gratification in the business world. And I think even more so now after COVID is that we kind of have COVID allowed us to, relax a little bit. But I think that for the younger generation that are really willing to put the time in and work hard, I think there are some incredible opportunities.
From the younger generation, have you seen an interest in collecting art?
That's kind of a little bit, I think, why Newzones has been so successful. Is I think that we really believe that everyone can be a collector, and we really try to take down those barriers. So, there's a lot of times, I don't know if you've been to contemporary galleries in different parts of the world, but you kind of walk in, nobody says anything to you, there's not a price list. When we built our building in 1997, well, first of all, to back up, there's not a person that comes in that does not get greeted. So I truly believe that everybody needs to get a hello, everybody needs to be addressed. And we always say, we're happy to show you around, let us know what you would like to see. So we really do try to make it accessible to all. Part of our next level of success on a monetary is we've always allowed people to do payment plans. So, if there's something that's $5,000, and it's a lot easier to pay it off with no interest over 10 months for $500. Our goal, obviously, is to educate, promote, and place, and that's how we keep the doors open. So we're willing to be very creative.
I didn't even know that existed where you could do payment plans on art pieces. I think that's remarkable. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think even, we do different art fairs in different parts of the world, and usually our clients are younger, and they are people that are more interested. And, we try to make Canadian art sexy in different parts of the world, create new markets for it. And so we deal with a lot of young people, especially as I age, everybody seems younger.
When you look at Canadian art versus anywhere else in the world, can you identify something in it to say, this is a Canadian piece?
I don't necessarily, for the landscape painters, I think it can be a little bit more regional. Like it's very identifiable when you go to the California landscape painters or the Eastern Quebec landscape painters. I think there's usually different themes just due to the world that kind of come up, but I don't necessarily know if there's something that I could say in terms, except the fact that usually Canadian art is undervalued. So that's why people around the world do love to collect it, because a mid-career Canadian artist is sometimes many, many $1,000s less than a mid-career American artist or European artist.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's a population and just, the discrepancy in terms of, I think in the States and Europe, if something, it's just, things are just that much more expensive if they're of luxury and of quality. And I think that unfortunately, in some ways, Canadians have always been a little bit understated. But I think that is also, I think that's also why we create such great people.
When you look at an artist that is wanting to be a part of your gallery, how do they do so? And what is considered contemporary art in today's era? Well,
contemporary actually just means that they're alive. Okay. Modern would mean that they have passed. In terms of what we are looking for, You know, artists with galleries, it's like a really long-term relationship, and it's almost like a marriage. So we're not like, we get tons of emails every single week. Oh, I'd love to mount a show. Like, that's not what we do. We really believe in the artists, and we want to take their careers from one level to the next. And on the whole, I'd say most of the artists have been with us for at least 20 years. And then there's a few kind of younger ones that have been with us less. But I used to actually go to U of C and was brought in as a guest lecturer, and basically we would discuss kind of the next few years. And really, once you're in art school and then you move on, is you have to kind of spend a few years developing your own handwriting. And the unfortunate statistic in visual arts is that most people can't afford after a few years to continue. So they don't really end up in the art world. And I don't know how, because I'm not in any other industries, I don't know, like, if you graduate with a history degree, do you end up being a historian? I don't really know what the stats are, but I think that you have to develop your own handwriting, you have to be passionate, you have to be creative, and then you have to see a few years later if you're actually still painting. Because I can't really do my job well if somebody's not committed for the next 10 years. Because you don't want to buy something from me and then know that the person's gone on to do something else. They have to really be invested in their career, just like I have to be. So it's kind of a two-way street.
Of course. Why do we see artists, once they pass, their value of art goes up exponentially? Of course, again, it's a supply and demand, but all of a sudden their name is known now and they're out there.
I think it's purely, it is a supply and demand, and that there's no more extra work that will be created. And that if the artist did have a good career, then you're really dealing for the rest of eternity with a finite amount of work.
How much of marketing is done with you guys versus the artist? So does the artist need to keep being out there and pushing themselves, or do they like to often just focus on their work and leave it up to someone else, an agent, a gallery to?
Yeah, usually, unfortunately, it's a little bit of a different world. 5 years ago, it was basically all up to us. There's now the whole, which helps us out also, but there is the whole people want to see stuff on Instagram and they want to see, but a lot of good artists aren't really social people. They're people that go to the studio every day, produce work, and that's what they're good at. And it's hard to kind of have, a daily, even for somebody like me. I very rarely post. I do the odd story. I love to look. I feel like I'm sometimes, I feel like I'm sometimes a voyeur because it's a definite part of my day, but it takes a lot of time and effort, and they're always changing how to do it. And if you're not in your teens and 20s, it's not as easy as it should be.
No, absolutely. And that's why you have a team that helps you now at Newzones?
No, I'm very, very lucky. I've had the same Sabrina Sullivan, who's my assistant director, has been with me for 16 years. Taylor's our registrar who does the social media. She's going on too. And then I have a few other people, but they're more part-time. And then I have my mother also.
And now your mom is a co-founder with you in this. She's an artist, you said?
She was an artist. So in 1992, I came back from McGill. She was starting to develop a few health problems and realized that she couldn't continue to paint the way she had painted. And times were really tough. And she said, I have an idea. Are you interested? And I said, sure. And because I didn't want to sell Canon copiers, nothing against Canon, but those were the types of jobs, photocopiers and insurance, that were available to recent business grads. And we started off very, very small in our old studio. We never dreamed that it would be kind of the international business that it is today. And she's not involved in day-to-day anymore, but she definitely reads every single email, and when she wants to offer her opinion, I hear about it. But it's great to have her because she has great relationships, and she is a great sounding board when something is kind of that I need to kind of talk about or just get off my chest.
For sure.
she's more emotional than I am. So Sabrina and her are kind of the more emotional and up down, and I'm kind of more the grounded. So just because I feel that's what you need to be as kind of on the business front of what I do.
That's what you thrive in. I like that dynamic because it's like focus on your strengths and let your weaknesses go. Just we're a
Yeah, and
team.
I think as you age and as you have different chapters in your life, I think you really kind of realize that you can't sweat all the small stuff, even though sometimes you do, and then you have to move yourself backwards, and then it's, but you really do.
Yeah.
You can't, I used to be a total type A, I'd say for like the first 20 years, I want to control, and I was real intuitive. So I kind of knew things that I thought would happen and did happen. But as I feel the next chapter is 30 on, but 20 to 30, and I think having a child, I think I really kind of realized that first of all, you need good help, and that's value added. And that you also just have to not stress the small stuff, because every day, the advent of I was a huge BlackBerry person, and then now with the iPhone, is you can be involved in your business 24/7.
It never ends. You can't.
No.
Yeah, it's a choice, right? So people say, "Oh, entrepreneurship, wow, it must be nice. You own your own business. You're so lucky. You must not have to work, and you can pick your hours." I don't think it works that way.
Yeah, no, I might not. I have the flexibility now that I don't have to be in at 9 o'clock in the morning, but I do see the shitty emails at 10 o'clock at night.
How important has health been to you? So you talked about stress, and looking back when you and your mom had started, she had health problems. How has that been for you to navigate through and keep that at the forefront?
Everybody thinks I'm corny, but I always say health is wealth. And I truly do believe it. My dad and I were always the strong ones, and my mom and my brother, whose name is Zach,
Oh, nice.
they always had health problems. My mom's a cancer survivor, had open heart surgery. My brother's had a kidney transplant. So there's been lots. So I always thought to a certain point I was somewhat invincible, except that I did know, and I'm sure you read that my mom had breast cancer, my grandmother had breast cancer. So I knew that I was a little bit doomed. So from, I think, the age of 35 on, I was very highly screened, very lucky in the Calgary system because genetics and being Jewish, we had a lot of opportunities to have great specialists. And neither my mom or I have the BRCA gene. However, obviously there is some sort of a gene. But, being told that you have cancer at 47 isn't exactly the words that you want to hear. But I was very lucky. It was very early, and I was able to make some changes. And I really do believe, as I started off with, health is wealth, and we are really, what would be the right word? We really have a lot of tools to navigate our future, and you have to put a lot of effort into it. And so when you talk about stress, there's certain things, like I played competitive tennis. I was always perceived myself as an athlete, a chubby athlete, but an athlete. And then I loved group fitness, and I spun a lot, but it wasn't until COVID that I really realized that taking it down a few notches and walking, being outside, feeling nature, oxygen, seeing the sun, like those are just really important things. I would say 365 days, or I guess 360 out of the 65 days a year, I wake up and walk for an hour, and it's a non-negotiable. So I usually plan flights, I plan my life, but I don't give that up. So
I love walking. Motion creates emotion, it makes you think, clarity, and just like you said, the air in and out, and just whatever. Life is
and that's kind of my, even though I don't, as I said, have to be here at 9:30 anymore. I'm up quite early, and I have coffee, scroll the news, Instagram, and then I'm on my feet by 7:30. And I have a great group of people, girls, that come and go, but one that's always there. And she didn't walk this morning though. And it's just really important. And then whenever I'm traveling, I walk on my own, and that's when I listen to podcasts. But basically, podcasts I feel are so mental. That's what gives me mental clarity, and that's what it's so important to listen to the word and to read the word. And I feel that you just really, your brain needs to, like, you need to be snapping those synapses. And I don't know what it is, as I said at the beginning, but the podcast really does that for me. I love listening to people speak.
What is some advice that you would tell your younger self?
I think back to not to stress the small stuff. I think also too, like, I've always been somebody that believes in enjoyment, but just really to work on all aspects of your life. Like, I do really think I gave Newzones the first 20 years, and that is great. And that's why I have all of this with my mom and I and our hard work. But I do think that there probably could have been a little bit more life work balance, as everybody says now.
Yeah, there's more balance than work, but do you still get inspired by new pieces from across the world, or when you're on Instagram scrolling or searching?
Yeah, I'm inspired every
Yeah.
single day. After you've been in business for 30 years, you really do have to think about what's next and the next chapter. And I'm definitely in it for the next while. There's a podcast I listen to by Brooke Shields. It's called Now What? I don't know if you've listened to it. They're very small, but she kind of primarily chats with women and kind of the next chapters and now what. And I haven't had a lot of time to do Zen, who's my son. I did a bit of board work, but now I've been asked to be on the Art Dealers Association of Canada's board. So I've accepted that. I start in September. And now that I don't have a child that I'm driving around 24/7 on top of working and on top of everything else I do, I feel there's a lot more opportunities for Newzones. Many years ago in pre-COVID, we used to do many, many fairs a year, and now we're just down to one. So Sabrina and I are looking at different fairs around the world that would be good fits and opportunities. So there is, but I still have it in me.
That's
maybe just at a different pace.
That's okay. The world has shifted to a different pace as it is for now.
Yeah. It's interesting because because I do have a retail aspect of the gallery, because we're open retail hours, and some days it feels like when you see me looking, it's because somebody's come in or something. Right. So that's what I'm looking at. But some days you feel you have this beautiful space and we all work so hard and nobody comes in to appreciate it. But Sabrina and I did do a strategy session, and I was floored by the fact that I think we came up with 62% of the people that do have collected over the last 12 months have actually walked in, which makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Because you sometimes think, oh, I could do this by appointment hours, or why are we open Saturdays during the summer? Like, you have all these different things that go through your head, but there's a really good test for us to kind of do all this strategy and figure out where people are coming. Because most of the time it feels like we all spend, 3 or 4 of us spend the whole day typing and sending emails. And
does it stress you out when you go somewhere and you see a painting that's too high or too low?
Those are the things that don't stress me out anymore. If it was a friend of mine or somebody that I actually cared about, I would say it. But yeah.
But that's just more telling them what's up and
just saying, you know what, you need to move that. Can I help you out with that?
We talk about contemporary and we talk about alive. And did NFTs ever come in the conversation? Because a couple of years ago, that was a big thing.
They were a very big thing. And, a few of my artists for fun did them. But if NFTs were the future, that really meant that we couldn't do what we really do best. So obviously I wasn't a huge subscriber to them. And I knew that it probably would be, it was more of a currency versus something to live with and to experience and to grow with and to love. than, just have something on your phone.
Has it been a conversation in terms of AI art or generative art?
Yeah, I don't know a lot. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about it. Of course, I hear a lot about it. We're very tactile here. Like, so you would know that an Annie Burrard light box is an Annie Burrard light box. There's so many elements technically, and that you can't use AI. And, a lot of, most of the artists that I deal with, I can't imagine how AI would change
Replace
it.
or change? Yeah.
So, but I understand in terms of other industries,
Yeah.
it's almost a little bit like, in the 2000s, like the sourcing out in different countries, like, it's not as sophisticated, obviously, but there's different things that we've seen through all the years that kind of come and go. And I know AI is a huge kind of threat, but it's not something that I think is really
It
going to
will
affect
affect
me.
the art industry right now. No.
Which is nice because
yeah, it is nice. Thank goodness.
yeah.
But there's something about physical art or knowing an artist's story and knowing who they are. Like it sells it all.
Yeah, but I think sometimes the art has to move you. Sometimes knowing the artist's story, and it can either be a pro or a con. So we usually tell people to collect what they actually really love and think, so a lot of people come in and they'll be like, well, it doesn't match the couch. Well, you know what? The couch is going to be a different color or not even there in 10 years, but we want this painting to be with you for the rest of your life. So really make sure that it's something that does move you.
I've seen a piece. I think it was just a blue canvas with a white stripe down it. It went for like, I don't know how many millions of dollars. But people can say, well, I can do that myself. Why would I?
And I always tell people that come to me is actually try. It takes a lot to, first of all, stretch a canvas that if we're thinking of the same piece that's that large.
It's a huge.
And then to try and get the perfect blue. And then the line probably is a lot more than just a line. So just try and see where you get. I'm sure that there's nobody that ends up with even copying the exact product.
No, I mean, you can look at Dali or you can look at Picasso and you can emulate it, but it's not the same. There's something in it.
And that's the beauty of my business is creativity is, it's a source of most things in life. And so we get to kind of be at the foundation of it. And also another beautiful thing of my business is the fact that because we deal primarily in uniquities is I never have the exact same person ending up with the exact same thing.
Right.
Or artwork. So it's always a new experience and there's always something new. And I could write a book with some of my stories.
I love it. So the one behind you right now, what does that speak of to you?
What is that? Well, she teaches at Emily Carr, and she's not a younger, like she's younger in her art career. I don't know if you notice it keeps on changing colors.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, was that just a lighting or just?
Yeah, no, it keeps on. So it has, but she's playing on the environment and abstraction and line form color.
That's super cool.
And yeah, it is. And then also in the circular format. So
it can speak to people.
And then and then I have a beautiful David Robinson sculpture in my office of kind of all the weight of the world on this person.
And what was that made of?
This is Fortin, which is an epoxy kind of concrete type of mixture.
God, that is beautiful.
So it's cast, yeah.
And that speaks a story for many of us, doesn't it? Sometimes you feel the weight on your shoulders and the world's on you. Yeah.
You just have to brush your shoulders off and get back up.
Absolutely. I'll have to come by one of these days.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let me know when so I can make sure to be here. Are you in Calgary or Edmonton?
Calgary.
Okay.
So close by. I pass you guys all the time. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how many people are driving down 11th and call us and they're like, oh, I like the painting in the window, let us know. And that's when we built the building. We hired a young architect and we really wanted the front to kind of invite, as I talked about, everybody's we say hello to everybody, but to invite people into our space.
And that's an experience on its own, isn't it? If it was cold, it's doesn't resonate, doesn't let people stick. Yeah.
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 So even like when you do come, you'll see that like a lot of the times galleries just have a solo exhibition. We really try in the front gallery to have a group. So there's always something that somebody would, kind of like, or that appeals to somebody. And then you go to the gallery to the right, and that's where usually the solo show would be.
And do you have artists, or I guess collectors, that constantly come back for more from new artists and existing artists?
Well, of my of our sales also, which made me feel good, is 50% were repeat.
I like that.
So I think that shows that we're doing a good job and that people are coming back. So it's the first time in 30 years that we actually really did look at every single person, and due to the advancements of Excel spreadsheets and some clicks here and there, we were really able to decipher a lot of things that I don't know if we haven't had the time in the past, or we just never really thought about addressing. We meet once a year and kind of do a SWOT analysis and different types of things, but we've never kind of looked at where each sale kind of came from and was directed from. So we kind of took a true business approach this year.
I like that. I like that. How did you never pivot to the past arts or mid-century paintings, and you kept it contemporary through and throughout 30 years?
Well, I think that's kind of been the success of some of the other galleries in the city, is that we all have our niches. And they, their Masters is a really good gallery, and they kind of deal more in the historical works. And it's really what we're passionate about as contemporary Canadian, and process. So we really like to look at process and whether what the artist is doing to kind of intrigue the viewer.
Yeah. I went to the Esker Foundation once in Inglewood. I thought that was neat.
Yeah.
They have some pretty cool exhibitions there.
Yeah, so the Hills, we actually met very early on in probably 93, 94, when we had our old space, and I don't know if they would credit us, but we feel we credit a part of their interest in the contemporary art world. And they've done obviously a very good job at doing a public museum, and the Esker is absolutely stunning, and they should be very proud of it.
Tamar, where do you see yourself in the next 20 years, personally and professionally?
Personally and professionally, 20 years, holy moly. I always wanted to be part of the art world. And, in my head, definitely 10-ish in terms of what I'm doing. My husband's 10 years older than me, so we kind of have to also take a look at, but if I have really good people, I can kind of do whatever I need to do from different places. And we have built a beautiful facility. So I will always be part of the art world, whether it's my involvement day to day here, or making it smaller and it being more consulting, or making it bigger. And, yeah, I don't plan on slowing down that much.
No.
It's kind of,
flow, right? Flow, not force. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I have a really good balance right now, and we're planning shows out 2 and 4 years.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, those years go by very, very quickly. Like, some days seem very, very long, but the years themselves seem like they go by very quickly. So yeah, no, the art world's my life.
Yeah.
And my life is credited to the art world. So, and to Calgary. I think that, and I said it earlier, is Calgary is an amazing place. I think that it has an international airport, so we can all get out of here quick. But it's really given a whole group of people incredible opportunities. And I love it. I love the big skies. I just love proximity to the mountains, and I love Calgary. So
what do you say to some artists out there that is one day hoping to be in a gallery like yours?
Just basically to work hard and really believe in themselves, because nobody else is going to believe in them until they believe in themselves. and to just keep on producing and creating your own handwriting. Because as we talked about earlier, it's easier to kind of mimic and copy, but really go down deep in that soul and see what can transpire and what comes out in whatever medium you're working in.
How much is it a story of a piece and the name of the piece versus just the piece?
You know, at a certain price point, it can just be about the piece, but at higher price points, you have to know that there's backing by the gallery and by the artist in terms of their commitment.
Yeah.
So,
But no, an individual piece, does it have to have a story and a name and a catchy name always?
you know, not at all.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, a lot of artists, especially abstract, just go by untitled and then give it a number and a year. So yeah, names are, some people love the storytelling of names and sometimes people, it's an untitled. So
I always had a question about this. When someone's signing an abstract painting, do they just do it behind? Because
okay, so the rule is usually with contemporary artists, they sign on the back. And the reason why they sign on the back is they don't want to interfere with the image on the front. So it just keeps it cleaner. It's just like when we're showing art in the gallery, you'll never see anybody in stripes or plaids. Like we're all in dark colors because we don't want to interfere with the artworks.
that's interesting because, yeah, you're right. I've always seen that at galleries. It's very calm. Whoever's there,
Mhm.
the environment is very calm. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's usually white walls and concrete floors or wood floors and really minimal so that the art speaks for itself.
Is there a piece in this world that speaks to you that you've seen and that's inspired you in life?
Hmm. You know, I think there's been lots through different parts of my life. I can't really narrow in.
I
I
love
was
all
lucky
my
enough,
artists, Zach.
yeah, I was lucky enough to be able to collect a 60s William Parahudoff, who since has passed. And it, you know, speaks to me every single day. So I love that. But all, you know, all the art that I have collected really, I do love. And that's, you know, art, it tells a story also of a different time in your life and you kind of remember different things based on that timing, besides the actual piece moving you. What we always like for our artists, like kind of being more of the traditional system, is to have a really good dealer or art gallery, like what we do, I call them dealers, in the East and then us in the West.
Mhm.
And then together we elevate their careers.
Have you seen someone like Jeff Koons or I think it's Cause out here? Are there anybody
Um,
or Canadian artists doing similar things?
you know, with Jeff Koons, that's a whole different ball game of, you know, he's a wonderful artist, but it's a whole production. So, you know, most unfortunately, when you become Jeff Koons, you have a certain level of wealth that allows you to produce a lot of beautiful things. So most artists in Canada don't have that. But there's always Canadian artists who are working in sculpture. And then with Cause, there's always what I would consider more outsider and people that are, you know, whether it's graffiti element or incorporated into their work, you know, and there's kind of waves. I'd say about 10 years ago, it seemed like outsider art was very, very big. And that's when Cause was at the height of, and I, you know, because they're not artists that I truly follow. I know Jeff Koons' prices have maintained their incredible value, but I don't know about a lot about Cause except for what
Right.
I've seen, like in the media.
And then you'll see similar things come up afterwards. I think their whole run for carries like the teddy bear or bear block or something. But
Yeah,
it's interesting to see how it all just starts moving into different animals. And
yeah.
yeah,
So
it's neat.
that's a whole other business, like through the museums also that you do, you know, trademarking and which I know nothing about, but producing like kind of production based on an artist's work.
How important has the community around you been? Not just the art community.
In terms of the design community in Calgary, like we have some of the top designers in Canada, the world, like
I love it.
you know, Paul Lavoie and Walker McKinley started here, and Nam Dang. Like there's a whole group of us that all started at one point and have all grown together. So I think the community has been a great, keeps us all in line.
It
We all
truly
need
does.
to,
Yeah.
and we want to, you want to be a better person, and you want your checks and balances, and you want to make sure that you're keeping up on your end.
And I want to kind of put our city on the map because we have so many great people here. So
yeah, no, that's what I said is it's nice to know that, a lot of people, especially when you go away to McGill or Western or Queens, is a lot of people think that you leave forever. But I always knew, I knew I wanted to go east, but I always knew that I wanted to come back also. Calgary is my city.
And it's grown, hasn't it? And it's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's thriving in its own way. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Tamar.
Okay. Talk to you later.